There's a harsh reality about vocals that you need to know about and be able to address if you want your vocals to sound professional. Let's check it out. Welcome back to the Band Guide, where we use GarageBand to create professional sounding music. I'm your band guy, Colin, and today I want to talk to you about a harsh reality of vocals, and you need to be able to address this if you want your vocals to sound professional. And that harsh reality is that at some points in your vocal, it might be really harsh. Pro mix engineers are regularly taming specific harsh frequencies at specific points in songs. And the culprit for these harsh frequencies is what's called sibilance. You're probably hearing it in this video. It's the S's and the sh's and the t's. Anything that is making that s sound can be really sibilant. And the same frequencies where it's really sibilant and really harsh sounding, unfortunately sounds really great on the general parts of the vocal. So you can't just cut them out with EQ. You can't just take those frequencies away because that's going to make your vocals sound really dull and weird. You need to address this very specifically just at those frequency points, just when they're happening. So an incredible tool was built for this. It has a hilarious name called the de-esser, and there's a great one built into GarageBand that you can use for free. There's also a couple other free tools that I'll show you in this video. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a really cool, really easy tool that costs a little bit of money, but is super powerful and a huge time saver. But first, let's just look at an example of what exactly we're talking about. All right, I have a song here, and if you've been watching the channel recently, you may have heard me talk about the song a little bit. It's an old song that I did in Pro Tools years ago, and I'm actually redoing pieces of it in GarageBand, and in a little over a month, I'm gonna be mixing the song completely live on the channel, where you can watch me go through all 6 steps of my 6-step mixing process to create a professional mix inside GarageBand. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna beat my old Pro Tools mix, which is a $700 piece of software with a lot of third-party plugins that each cost hundreds of dollars. I'm going to beat them inside GarageBand using only GarageBand plugins and free plugins that you can download right now completely free. And I'm going to make a mix that sounds better. I just know I am. I actually demoed this song a little bit in my last video where I'm talking about vocal compression, and I got excited about it, and I ended up just doing a rough mix of this song. And I was reminded while I was doing that about these harsh frequencies and how much of getting that pro vocal sound is addressing these harsh frequencies. So let's go ahead and jump in and listen to what this vocal sounds like. Right now we just have EQ and compression on this vocal. There is no de-essing. So pay attention to how harsh the S's and the T's and the sh's are inside this vocal.
And you say it's just to get out, yeah, it's just to get out of the thick of it. Now you're saying you're proud, yeah, you're saying you're proud. We're all getting sick of it, yeah.
Did you hear that? It's kind of harsh, right? Now, let's listen to what I've done on the vocal that does have some de-essing on it and some attenuation at those harsh frequencies, only when those S's are happening. Check it out.
And you say it's just to get out, yeah, it's just to get out of the thick of it. Now you're saying you're proud, yeah, you're saying you're proud. We're all getting sick of it, yeah. And you say
a lot better, right? If we just listen to that first line back to back, check this out.
and you say it's just to get out, yeah, it's just to get out.
Compared to,
And you say it's just to get out, yeah, it's just to get out.
I mean, that's really harsh, but it's only harsh at those frequencies when he's saying S's and T's. So we need to address it at those specific frequencies. And on this lead vocal, what I've done is several stages of that. And this is something I missed for a long time. I just thought you put a de-esser on, you find the one frequency where it happens, and you address that and it's done. And I was never really happy with what I was getting. I never felt like I understood why I was still hearing my S's too much. It was still too harsh. And I over time learned that you just have multiple little points where S's are shining through. And it's going to be a little bit different. Not every vocal is going to struggle with this. Sometimes the vocalist with the microphone in the room, there's something about it where it doesn't quite get harsh S's. So if your S's don't sound harsh, you might just not have the same issue based on the right configuration of variables. You also might have it where there's only one frequency where it's spiking up when they're hitting their S's and their T's. But you could have it in this case where there's really like 3 areas where the S is really cutting through, and it's just a little bit too much. And so what a de-esser is going to do is it's going to turn down just those specific frequencies, and only when it gets beyond a certain volume level. So you set a threshold essentially, and when the volume at those frequencies exceeds that threshold, it gets turned down just at those frequencies. So it's this really narrow band of your EQ that just gets turned down really quickly. So I've done this at a couple different frequencies using a couple of different de-essers and then a dynamic EQ, the TDR Nova. This is a free dynamic EQ. De-esser is essentially just a dynamic EQ at one specific frequency. And that's basically a compressor and an EQ built in, and you are just saying if the volume ever gets too loud, just turn it down at that specific frequency. So how do you find what frequency to turn down? If you pull up a de-esser, this doesn't really tell us anything. But what we're seeing here is the specific frequency. So this is 9791 hertz. And if we look at that on EQ, that is going to be somewhere right around here on the EQ. Now you can see I've actually boosted this area because generally that area sounds really nice on this vocal. So I want to kind of accentuate that a little bit with my EQ. But when those frequencies come out on the S's and the T's, it just gets a little bit too harsh. So how do you find that, and then how do you address it? Well, let's go to the vocal where we've not put any de-essing on it, and I'll show you that. So if we go down to this vocal here, we have the same EQ, and we're going to use that as our guide. So I'm going to play a little bit of the vocal, and right when I hear an S, I'm going to pause it, and we're going to see on the screen where that frequency jumps up at when the S is hit.
And you say,
all right, do you see that? So it's always typically going to be 4,000 hertz and above. And with a lot of vocals, you're really looking in 6,000 hertz and above. What we can see here is the S really jumps up around somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 hertz, and then somewhere again a little bit higher, probably around 12,000 hertz. So we're going to start by addressing those specific frequencies. So we're just going to put on a de-esser. It's under Dynamics de-esser. And you'll see here it defaults to being set to 10,000 hertz, which is a pretty safe bet. A lot of vocals have a little bit of sibilance around 10,000 hertz. And what we can do is we'll just solo this vocal, and the suppression is going to be how much it's going to turn down by combined with the threshold. So it's going to lower the threshold, and it's going to say turn down more at that specific frequency. And what we want to find is where it looks like on the EQ. So in this case, it looks like the biggest peak is right around 9,000 hertz. We want to start with that being our starting point, and we just want to find where it really sounds unnatural when we have the suppression all the way down. So let's start around 9,000.
and you say it's just to get out.
Listen to that.
And you say it's just to get.
Verses.
And you say it's just.
Kind of sounds like he has a lisp a little bit. You got to be careful that you're not creating an unnatural sound with too much suppression at that frequency. But that tells us that we're at the right frequency. So we're just going to scale this back until it's just taming it a little bit.
And you say it's just to get out. And you say it's just to get out. And you say it's just to get out. Yeah.
So somewhere around there is starting to tame it pretty well to me. And you can go where it's a little bit too extreme and then just scale it back a little bit. I'll be honest, the secret to this is finding a really sibilant part in your song and then just looping it. It's going to be really annoying, but you're going to be able to address it a lot better if you're really just hearing that over and over again, which is why you're going to hear me playing that harsh frequency over and over again. Okay, so that kind of took care of that first one. So if we look on our EQ here,
and you say it's just.
It still bumps up, but it's not as extreme, and it's still sounding natural. That's going to be the thing that you're balancing, is still making it sound natural. All right, let's do a second de-esser here. Let's address that higher one that's somewhere around 12,000 hertz. So we have this de-esser here. We're going, in this case, 12,000 is the highest we can go on this de-esser. And if we make it all the way down, let's listen to what this sounds like now.
And you say it's just.
Sounds weird again, right? Another good indicator that this is probably doing what we need it to do. So let's scale it till it starts to sound weird and then scale it back just a little bit.
And you say it's just to get out. And you say it's just to get out.
A little bit weird.
And you say it's just to get out.
That's pretty natural. Somewhere around there is working for me. Okay, so we've started to address it. Now, this is where I used to stop. I would never really look for anything below maybe 6,000 hertz. But what I've really started to come to understand over time is that there is an area, especially with shoulds, that can be a little bit extreme around 4,000 hertz. That's about as low as I typically will go, maybe 3,500 hertz. So if we're looking at our EQ here, it would be somewhere around here. Now, this can be a little bit harder to see on the EQ. So if we're looking when he's singing here,
and you say it's just to get out.
It's a little bit harder to see that because there's other information generally going on when he's saying.
It's just to get.
most words, there's a little bit of information around there. Whereas with sibilants, you really see it spike up in these upper frequencies pretty distinctly. So it's a little bit harder to find, but if you have done higher issues in your vocal, so somewhere around 8K, maybe somewhere around 10 or 12K, figure out where those ranges are. I really start with 6 to 8 and then kind of 9 to 12,000 hertz. But if you've addressed in that range or figured out that you don't really have frequencies in that range that are bothering you, then I would try something a little bit lower. So in this case, let's try around 4,000 hertz. Let's do one more here. And we'll set it around 4,000. And let's listen to what this is doing when we suppress really extremely.
And you say it's just to get out. And you
can
say
definitely
it's
hear
just
it.
to get out. And you say it's just.
See, so to me, it's right around that 4
And you say it's just to.
that sounds the most extreme. So that's, again, what you're looking for. When the suppression is really attacking it a lot on that S sound, that's when you know you're kind of in the right ballpark. So let's tailor this one in now.
And you say it's just to get out. And you say it's just to get out. And you say it's just to get out. Yeah. And you say it's just to get out. Yeah, it's just to get out.
Okay, without these de-essers.
And you say it's just to get out. Yeah, it's just to get out.
With them.
And you say it's just to get out. Yeah, it's.
Sounds a lot more consistent, right? Even some of his S's within this aren't as extreme as other ones. But that initial S is so harsh, this really helps make it just a little bit more tame, a little more reasonable. All right, so I want to show you one more thing, and that's the TDR Nova. This is a dynamic EQ. This can be just kind of a fun, different way to approach de-essing. And I find myself doing this more and more over time. I really like the graphic component of it, being able to see it. And then also this TDR Nova, which is, again, a completely free dynamic EQ that you can download, has some cool features that allow me to really zone in on specific areas. So one other thing to know is that after compression, sometimes it's exaggerated again. Sometimes it's, even if you tame it before, the way a compressor works is that it only turns down when it gets past a certain volume. And these S's are not necessarily the loudest part of the vocal in terms of overall volume. So they might not actually engage that compressor to turn down. So they end up getting highlighted by the compressor, which can end up making it sound a little bit extreme after you set your compressor. So sometimes you need to do a little bit of de-essing after, and that's what I was finding with this vocal. And so what I've done is just a little bit of additional de-essing at one specific frequency band right around 9,000 hertz. That's where it seemed the most extreme. And you can see how this works here. This is pretty cool. This is really what a de-esser is doing. So check this out.
And you say it's just to get out. Yeah, it's just to get out.
Pretty cool, right? So I'm doing a couple other things with this EQ. I'm taming down in these low mids where it just at a couple different points he sounds a little bit muddy, if you will, adding a little bit more presence and then a little more of the like really bright frequencies. So right here, this is the band that we're focusing on right now for the de-essing, for the harsh frequencies. So what's cool with this plugin is you can hit gain reduction delta here and you'll just hear what's being turned down by the dynamic part of this plugin. So check that out here.
You say it's just to get out. Yeah, it's just to get out.
So we have this other dynamic one. We hear that too. I'll turn that off. Right? So we can know that we're only hitting those S's with this band on this EQ. And I've done a video on using this plugin, so I won't go too in depth on using this. So check out my video on the TDR Nova to really understand how to use this plugin. It's a really powerful tool, but you can see how you get a nice visual element. You can also solo just hear what you're turning down. You can also solo just this one band, which can help you find the frequencies that you need to really attack. Now, I want to finish this video by showing you one paid plugin that's really, really powerful. It's called Sibilance by Waves, and this thing is just a machine at dealing with sibilance. It's amazing. So let's listen to this vocal. I've done sibilance before here at the very beginning, and then I've also done it after the fetish. So this is the only de-essing on this vocal, one before and then one after the compressor.
And you say it's just to get out. Yeah, it's just to get out. Out of the thick of it. Now you're saying you're proud. Yeah.
I mean, it's totally addressing it, right? This is a really cool plugin. Let me show you how easy this one is to set. So I'll just put a fresh one on here at the beginning of the chain. This is, again, by Waves. So if you look up Sibilance by Waves, it's a great plugin. Typically, you can find it for around $30. And what I love about this plugin is that it's so fast. So I pull it up, I can solo my vocal here, and I can monitor and just make sure that I'm only hearing the S's and that I'm hearing all the S's that I want to address. Right? So that's me just hearing those things, kind of like we did with TDR Nova.
Out of the thick of it.
And then you can set, if you go to this side when you're listening to monitor, it's going to get less of the sh and maybe less of the T's. This is going to get more of that type of stuff, but it could pick up other stuff. So listen in your vocal, see if you find where it's working. On this vocal, I think kind of leaning in that direction of a wider band is better. And then you can just set your threshold. So this is how loud it needs to be before it gets detected by this plugin. So as long as the volume is going past this point, then we'll start to turn it down. So you just want to bring that down until it's really addressing everything you're hearing. Right? Okay. It's getting a little bit more than I might want, so we'll address kind of between these two knobs. We can take it out of monitor, and then we're going to figure out the range that we want it to turn down by so it doesn't start to sound like he's lisping or not making enough of that S sound.
And you say it's just to get
You can
out.
go more. This is going to be the maximum range, so the most that we'll ever turn it down.
And you say it's just to get out. Yeah, it's just to get out.
Pretty
Out
cool,
of the
right?
thick of it.
I mean, we just did that in seconds. So you can do this so much faster than you can with individual de-essers. But would I recommend you do this if you're just starting out? Yes and no. I would recommend that you, after this video, go practice on a vocal using the de-esser technique where you're kind of identifying on an EQ where those frequencies are and you're addressing them on a de-esser. That's going to really help you understand conceptually how this works. It's such an important part of being able to create a professional sounding vocal, is really understanding the mechanics of what you're doing. This is a great tool once you understand to be able to just throw this on and quickly address it. But the reason that I want to encourage you to just go get that right now is because if you don't know how to do it fundamentally, then if you ever don't have this tool, you might not be able to get your vocal to sound the way that you want it to. So I encourage you to never rely only on tools. These are new tools that are really powerful and can address these things with much less work from the user, which is great for me, saves you time, and in some ways often gets you better end results. But you need to fundamentally understand how you're addressing it before you just move away from learning that piece of it. But that said, this is an amazing tool that can really, really fix a lot of your sibilants and your vocals very quickly without a lot of effort from you. So definitely check it out. Now, if you've made it this far into this video, I know you're really serious about creating professional sounding music in GarageBand. And I want to give you something to help with that. I've put together a completely free 6-step checklist to a pro mix in GarageBand. It walks through the 6 steps that all professional mixes have, how you can do them inside GarageBand completely free. There's a link in the description below where you can grab it, so be sure to pick that up. Before we go, I want to hear from you. Have you tried to address sibilants in your mixes? Is this something that you've already started working on, or have you noticed it and didn't know how to address it? Let me know in the comments below. If this video is helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video.
One thing at a time.